Hello, and welcome to today's edition of the Live and Invest Overseas podcast. I'm Kat Kalashian, and I'm based in Paris. I am one of our European editors based over here full time. And today I'm joined by another France expat, Robin, and he has been living in Gascony now for how many years was it again? Remind me.
Well, in Gascony, it's about 12 years.
Not necessarily full time, which we can get into a bit more today, but at least spending, a significant amount of time there for enough time that I think it's safe to call him a bit of an expert. So today, Robin, last time I talked to you, we talked a bit more about lifestyle and what it would be like, for example, to retire there, what it's like just to live there, essentially. But the other side of what you've been doing down there is running a business. So today we're going to talk a little bit more about this business, administrative, bureaucratic side of things and get into some of these details with you. Because to be perfectly frank, I'll just put it out there, France is not the most business-friendly country in the world. It's certainly not at the top of our business-friendly list of places to go if you are an entrepreneur looking to start a business overseas. That's not to say it can't be done. I know plenty of expats working here, plenty of expats who have started businesses here at all ages and at all moments in their life. But it is certainly a place where the odds are a bit more stacked against you compared to some of the more business-friendly havens that we talk about at Live and Invest Overseas, such as Panama or Colombia, for example.
Absolutely. Well, the business I run is called Simply Gascony, and it's a holiday rental agency. That's to say, we are agents, we represent the owners of houses here in Gascony, which are people's own holiday houses, but they may live in them for long stretches of time as well, just as I do in my home. But when they're not in their own homes, some people like to rent them out, get an income, and also it's good for a house to be used, occupied. So we have constantly a waiting list of properties wanting to be listed on our website. And we then present them to the world, online, all the rest of it. And we have a website. If you go on Google and Simply Gascony, you'll find us. And that website presents each of the properties, of course, but also a lot of information about Gascony, about the area that we work in, because it's fascinating. It's part of the appeal of my job is that it helps me to get to know more and more about this wonderful part of Southwest France. We've been running the business for 10 years. I say we because my wife helps me with it, but also it's a family business from our point of view. So I have a network of friends and family who do different jobs, different roles within it. So one of them runs the website, another runs the Instagram posts, somebody else produces blogs, and we work together in a sort of reasonably well organized but quite relaxed way. And it's a business I can run when I'm in France, which is about 8 months of the year, and also when I'm in the UK, which is the other 4 months of the year. Like a lot of businesses online these days, one can be very flexible.
Yeah, no, that is a fantastic new aspect of being able to work, or at least the digital aspect of being able to work, pick up your laptop and go overseas. The digital nomad term, of course, has become quite trendy recently. So you said you've been in the area for about 12 years and you started the business about 10 years ago. So it took you a few years to find your footing there and kind of put your finger on what this business idea would be. Would you say that's...
Yes and no. Like all these things, it's often not completely black or white. We've known the area for a long time, 30 years, not where we are now, a bit further north. And also another version of the knowledge here is on the other side of Toulouse, east of Toulouse, where for 3 years I ran a French wine business, as it happens. My career path has had some interesting twists and turns, and it included 3 years working in an area called Gaillac. So we know the Southwest very well. 30 years experience is a lot, and running a business here different business, but still running a business. And you're right. And with the wine world, you certainly get involved, for better or worse, with French bureaucracy. The French tend to create lots of rather strange and inflexible rules about how things must be done. Also, the French have created and discovered all sorts of workarounds. So, I mean, I could give you examples from the wine industry, but you think something is a real problem. If you're on the inside or somebody gives you the right advice, you'll find there is a way of dealing with it. Legal, not immediately obvious, but it works. And I think that's true of quite a lot of aspects of business here.
Yes, definitely. Well, one thing I do want to point out in that is that often that those workarounds, those creative solutions, they all take the help of someone, usually a local, tends to be a local, sometimes an expat. But this is why we always tell people, don't shy away from getting help, even hiring help. It is an expense, for example, to hire an attorney with for example, your residency process. But it will almost inevitably save you money and certainly time in the long run to get a good referral right off the bat for whatever it is that you want to do. And so speaking with somebody who has already started a business and has gone through these hoops and finding out, who you need to contact at any stage in this process is key number one to almost anything you do overseas, I would say.
Totally agree with that. And everybody we help find a house, a property to buy here. Yes, I said that our business is mainly rentals, but in the course of that, we also get asked to advise on to help find houses when people want to buy, or they rent to have a place as a base for searching. And pretty much the first thing I say to people, just like you, when they come and start looking, is get your local contacts and do find a good local French or bilingual lawyer, because French law is different from English and indeed American law, which is rooted originally in English law. It's just a different way of doing things. It's not better or worse, but it's different. And if you don't know your way around, you can fall flat on your face.
And it doesn't matter if you don't know the rules, right? You can plead ignorance, but it's not going to help you in the long run if you end up doing something wrong, for example. So, you always want to go through the process. And one of the things we often say as well about the hiring of a lawyer is if you really want to put yourself to the test, and figure out how to do some of these things for yourself and figure them out for yourself, you end up wasting a lot of time and energy asking questions about, things like, well, why do they do it this way? It should obviously be done this way. This is the way it's done back home. But that's totally pointless. You're not going to change how things are done in your new country. So why even bother to scratch your head about it? Just cut right to the chase.
And two bits of good news I'd say there is that the cost of the law, anyway, in southwest France, is much lower than you would expect from American or English experience.
Mm-hmm.
And seriously, a lot cheaper to have proper, good quality legal advice. Running a business here does have some advantages. So the sort of small business infrastructure in the area, I mean supplies of stuff, as simple as printer paper, readily available, printer ink, readily available. France is a very sophisticated first world country, and even in the deepest southwest France, all of those business services are here, they're available. They may not be as wide a range of sophistication as you find in a city in the United States, but it's perfectly okay to support an ordinary small business. And the internet coverage here is good in Gascony, and it's getting better all the time. France will have, within 2 years, we'll have fiber throughout Gascony with very high speeds.
Great.
And so, whether you're a pure digital business or simply managing another business, a different sort of production business or retail business, but again, you need the communications to do that. Gascony is fine as a base to work from.
Okay, so my next question is about employees because you mentioned working with a few people locally. So how exactly does that work? Are they considered English employee or employees in an English company, or how does that work dealing with local labor laws, basically, as an employer?
I do not employ, as in
Okay,
legally employ, anyone in France.
there
And you
you
want to think very carefully about, and this applies to French businesses just as much as any other. French businesses are very wary now, these days, of employing people, especially small businesses. If you're a big business with a, sophisticated human resources department, okay, you can cope with it. But for a small business, the bureaucracy of employment is tough.
But it is absolutely an impossible task to have employees here in France. And it's funny to hear you say that you wouldn't get near that with a 10-foot pole because any experience that I have, anecdotally, that is, not that I've ever employed someone here in France, anecdotal stories I have are somewhat horror stories.
Yeah.
I mean, and especially just living here, it's no secret that employees are very, very well treated. They're very, very well unionized. There are strikes constantly, protests constantly. These standards of pensions and time off and vacation and sick days are so high. And it is so costly to employ anyone here in France that, right, I think the bottom line is you just shouldn't do it. And there's also this funny thing here in France that there's a 6-month trial period. This is not uncommon in many parts of the world. The time will differ, vary according to country. Here in France, at least back at the point at which this story is taking place, it was 6 months. The company had hired this girl, I think, just as a secretary, answering phones, filing basic administration. For 6 months, she was a model employee, perfect, came in on time, left on time, everything to a T. On the 91st day, or sorry, the 181st day, she came into work 2 hours late. She took a 3-hour lunch. She, basically did none of her work. And there was no way that they could get rid of her at that point. So, cautionary tales.
You can hire people, but you can't fire them.
Absolutely, yes. So,
Right.
if you hire someone, no, it's for life.
But there is a workaround. And so the small building businesses that I know quite well in this area, they won't employ people. What they do is they network. So one business will, if for example, it's a carpentry business, they will know a plumbing business. They don't need to employ them. They just both need to turn up on the site, the client's site, by arrangement at the same time. And they can both work in parallel, but neither is employing the other. So self-employed people network together so that they can deliver a team and a bigger job, but without anybody having the sort of employment liability for anyone else. And that's quite common. It's got its disadvantages. Of course, apprenticeships have disappeared. So no young people are learning new skills. A lot of that's been lost, which is a shame. And it makes for some inefficiencies also. But people's houses get built. The work that does get done.
Right. And I will just make the point that it's equally as difficult for a foreigner from the reverse angle of this. So if you are a foreigner trying to become employed in a French company, you are going to encounter many different issues, not the same issues, but it's not going to be easy to work overseas in an employment situation, whether you're the employer or the employee. It's just not the place to set your sights if you are looking to do something to make money overseas. Your best options are almost always going to be in foreign countries. In France, it's called the auto entrepreneur, but basically being an entrepreneur, starting your own business, and also this digital realm that we've been talking about. So those are kind of your options.
But let me give you an example of a success story, which illustrates this a bit. My business works with a electric bike hire business in this area. And we have an obvious common interest. I have guests, tenants coming to rent houses on holiday. They sometimes want bikes to ride around on. And I searched around and found this relatively new startup company. It's a French business, but it was started and is run by a Kazakhstani woman. The woman come from Kazakhstan to live in France and created a new business and has changed the way in which people think about bike hire in this part of France. They had a new idea, a new way of thinking about it, very clever, and they've got a very successful business. It's great. In 2 years, it's developed into a very substantial operation. So it can be done. It can be done. You've got to have, of course, passion.
Yes, you have to have a lot of determination,
energy, yeah, and to be on the right side of the way things are moving.
Yes, absolutely.
And what for people coming here to Gascony, you look at the areas of activity. You might think, well, there are really only two industries in this area: agriculture and tourism. They overlap occasionally. So there are agricultural products that tourists can be interested in. So, to give you an example I do know about, for a few years, my wife and I, exported from Gascony garlic back to England.
Oh, wow, that's so fun.
It was, and we did it because the garlic here, we discovered it. This is our neighbour, our farming neighbour, literally over the fence. We discovered that he grew terribly good garlic. And we did some research in England, and there wasn't anything of that quality in England. And so we figured it out, the transport, the logistics, and demand and buyers at the English end. And first of all, we filled a small car. And by the end, this is before Brexit, we were taking lorry loads, truckloads of garlic presses. And
I'm so glad you mentioned this, because this is the one aspect of working overseas, whether you call it work or not, that we haven't mentioned yet. That the other massive way that a lot of expats, do business overseas is through an import-export business.
Yeah.
And so, right, you've took it large scale, which is really interesting. I'd love to hear more about that another day. But we've known people that have done this, myself included, actually, that have done this on a small scale, just taking suitcases. I went to Ecuador. I was scouting around in leather villages and alpaca wool villages. So I filled up suitcases full of stuff that I was 2,000 feet up a mountain and able to get these things from the woman at the loom for pennies on the dollar, and then, I bring them back and, selling them in Europe is, they're worth, 5 times. No, 15 times what they're being sold for in Ecuador. We've known people that have done this as well, as I say, on all scales, including on this big scale that Robin is talking about. And so this is another way when you get to know the area that you're living in, what sells, what's cheap, what grows well, what grows easy, what artisan, handmade, trade skill, craft, lost art is still being practiced there that you could, bring to the world, whether it's, and of course the online world has only made this easier. Now you don't actually have to have a suitcase full of things. You can just sell it online and, sell it out of your garage, ship it out of your own garage whenever you want. So I'm so glad you brought that up. And garlic, French garlic, I'm sure that definitely has a niche. You would be amazed what could have a niche.
No, you're absolutely right. And I think it's good to think wider than just what's on the ground here, because anybody starting a business in this part of the world needs to remember that very few people actually live here, and that when the tourists come, the visitors come, they come only at certain times of year. So the actual local market is, in terms of numbers of people, is tiny. The retail expression is, what's the footfall like? So, how many people are going to be passing your shop, or whatever it is, your Pilates studio, for example.
Right.
And the answer is very few people are here to support it. And that applies once you get to the winter months. there are even fewer. And those that are, there's people involved in agriculture, they're not going out shopping. You know, they're either working on the land or they're at home keeping warm. So don't start up. I mean, you know, a high-end cosmetics retail cosmetic business here wouldn't probably take off. I don't.
That's great advice. So thank you so much for joining us today. I think we've really delved deep into what it's like to work overseas or try and start a business overseas. So I really appreciate your insights and taking the time to sit with us again today. And we'll hope to speak with you again soon. If anybody is, of course, interested in this part of France, they should go to simplygascony.co.uk because it is, of course,
Simply Gascony on Google.
On Google. All right, there you go. Thanks very much again, Robin, for taking the time to join us today.
Well, we look forward to seeing you down here.